welcome to Keflavik International Airport, serving the nearby city of Reykjavik, Iceland. Today, I will be flying with Lufthansa on an Airbus A321neo bound for the German city of Frankfurt. When I woke up that morning in nearby Keflavik, after staying the night due to a flight cancellation, I genuinely had zero clue that later that day I would be flying on this flight to Germany. To put it all in context, the previous afternoon I was supposed to be flying with Iceland Air to Nuuk in Greenland. However, for some reason the flight got cancelled and I was forced to make alternative arrangements. After doing a lot of research earlier that morning, I managed to book a last-minute flight to Copenhagen with Lufthansa via Frankfurt, which I was very fortunate enough to be able to snag a cheap deal on. Putting the whole shit show of yesterday behind me, I made my way to the terminal to check in for this afternoon's flight. Keflavik Airport, or in Icelandic Keflavik, is the primary international airport serving not only the town it's named after, but also nearby Reykjavik and the entirety of Iceland. This airport is only an international airport. No domestic flights depart from this airport. These flights depart from the much smaller Reykjavik Airport, which is more centrally located in the town. From here, the majority of flights depart to either Europe or North America, and conveniently they generally line up, so passengers can fly transatlantic with a brief stop here. The Lufthansa group uses the far left-hand check-in desk for their economy class, and considering how early I was to check in, there was basically nobody else here, so the whole process was rather smooth. After the check-in process was completed, I turned around and made my way towards the security checkpoint. However, I was briefly stopped by the Iceland Air ground team, who were very apologetic for what happened to me and promised a full refund for everything that was caused. Side note, I have since received this refund. As today I will be flying to another Schengen country, immigration was not required. However, the security and immigration is located up the stairs and off to the right. Security today was very friendly and kind. It was a good final impression of Iceland, well, at least until I come back again. Post-security is the usual duty-free shopping area, which feels rather industrial, and unfortunately due to the airport's design, you are directly forced into it as there is no bypass option available. Adding on to that, the terminal itself, at least in my opinion, has a very industrial look, but there is tons of natural light around, especially in the waiting area, which is also filled with a huge selection of shops and restaurants. The terminal has a single pier, where the majority of flights depart. However, there are multiple remote gates spread around, with I'm not sure if there are underground passengers beneath the apron or if they're just shuttle buses. I'm still not sure to this day. As is typical for most European airports, all passengers, including non-Schengen country-bound passengers, enter the Schengen zone, with North American flights being in a completely separate area. Shortly after I had arrived at the gate, so did that of our inbound aircraft from Germany, which today is an Airbus A321neo, registered as Delta Alpha India Echo Foxtrot. Construction of this airframe was completed at Airbus's final assembly line in Hamburg, Germany in December of 2020, and it was sent to Lufthansa later that same month, making this aircraft just over 4 years old. Boarding commenced shortly after I had arrived at Gate 15, starting firstly with business class passengers and high-tier Lufthansa Group customers, and then followed by economy class. Due to my predicament and how awesome the Iceland ground staff are, I was given priority boarding as a sort of sorry from them, which was very much appreciated. Lufthansa's A321neos all have the exact same configuration no matter what airframe you fly on, being in a two-class layout. This aircraft has a dynamic business class cabin, so for the sake of simplicity, on today's flight there were 24 business class seats in a 2-2 layout with the middle seat being blocked, and 179 economy class seats in a 3-3 layout with row 29 being in a 3-2 layout. This afternoon I shall be seated in 27 Alpha on the port side or left hand side of the aircraft. Lufthansa has opted for the Geven Essenza lightweight slimline seat, which features 28 inches or 71 centimeters of pitch and 17.7 inches or 45 centimeters of width. There is a standard tray table that folds down and extends towards you. In the seat back pocket you'll find a safety card, magazine and an air sickness bag. Above are individual reading lights, air vents and 2 flight attendant call buttons. In between each trio of seats are 2 sets of USB-A and USB-C ports. Soon we commenced our pushback from gate 15, 9 minutes ahead of our scheduled departure time.
Unmittelbar bevor Sie das Flugzeug verlassen, ziehen Sie an den roten Türdoct in the event of an emergency landing. Please take particular note of the location of the emergency exits. They are marked accordingly, and illuminated strips on the floor will guide you to these exits.
We taxied to runway 10 via Charlie 3, Kilo 3 and Kilo 4. Now please enjoy this unedited takeoff. After takeoff, we made a slight right-hand turn away from Keflavik to set up our southeasterly course for Germany. Flight time today is 3 hours and 23 minutes, covering a distance of 1,533 miles or 2,467 kilometers, cruising at 37,000 feet. Straight after takeoff, down below on the left-hand side was the town of Keflavik, home to the world-famous Blue Lagoon, and which is where I stayed last night. The western side of Iceland has quite the selection of towns and cities which can all be very clearly seen and are within a few minutes of each other. The largest city by far is Reykjavik, which passed by in the distance, but more interestingly, also visible, was Selfoss, which is home to, at least in my opinion, the most beautiful waterfall in the world. On their inter-European flights, Lufthansa does not offer complimentary food on board. However, food can be purchased through the buy on board menu. Otherwise, a small bar of delicious German chocolate and a bottle of water is offered. Due to rather ugly weather over the North Sea and northern Germany, the last piece of land visible today was the northern tip of Scotland, which the only town visible was Turbatnas and nearby Raff Lossiemouth. On board the aircraft are 4 bathrooms, 1 for business and 3 for economy. The centre bathroom has everything you would typically come to expect for this aircraft type, including a large baby changing station and the Lufthansa branded hand soap encased in its metal coffin. Soon we commenced our descent into Frankfurt. With my turnaround time at Frankfurt being very brief, less than 45 minutes to be exact, it was a race against the clock to get on the ground to make my connecting flight to Copenhagen. However, I wasn't ready for the colossal shit show that would occur on the ground. Unfortunately, the footage, details, and my review of that flight will never be shown on this channel, as I was threatened by the crew and captain to stop filming, otherwise I would not only be offloaded from the flight, but also banned from Lufthansa, or so they say they would have. I found the whole situation on the next flight to be completely unprofessional, and personally, it turned me off from flying Lufthansa, well, at least in the moment. I tried my absolute hardest to save the video, but alas, I could not. Now please enjoy this unedited landing. After landing, we taxied back to the terminal via Papa 20, Papa, November 11, Lima, and November 5. We pulled into gates Bravo 22, 3 minutes ahead of our scheduled arrival time. As I stepped off the aircraft, I thanked the crew for the great flight before turning my attention away towards my next one. So I just flew in Lufthansa's inter-European economy class. What are my thoughts? Well, as always, let's start from the beginning. Check-in at Reykjavik was very pleasant and easy. The Iceland Air ground crew, who were responsible for the majority of check-in services at Reykjavik, did a fantastic job in keeping me happy and informed about the previous cancellation, and I genuinely cannot fault them. Security was also flawless. It took me absolutely no time to get through, and they were also equally friendly. Side rant, in general, I found that the Icelandic people are some of the nicest in all of Europe. On board, the seat was exactly what I expected for this aircraft type, and it was comfy enough, certainly better than, say, Jetstar. The food was Now, granted I didn't get anything, but I would have expected something more for a flight of this length. Maybe even a small sandwich or a drink service would have been nice. And lastly, my thoughts on the crew were rather positive for this flight, but the same cannot be said for my next, who seriously need to go back to training and learn that a phone isn't going to cause issues on board. So, would I recommend you to fly with Lufthansa on an inter-European flight? Well, provided that you aren't carrying around a phone and you don't mind paying a small fortune for your flight, yeah, I would. They got the job done. However, I would not call this flight premium in any regards. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you check out my other videos if you want to see more. And I have said this before, but I now have a Discord server. Feel free to join. The link can be found at the top of the description. And as always, feel free to press the notification button too, as it will let you know whenever I upload again, which happens every Friday at 8 PM Sydney time. And I hope to see you all again in the next one. Auf Wiedersehen!